In this Club Random podcast, Bill Maher and Kat Timpf discuss their drinking habits and how it relates to health. Maher, who used to consume 25, 30 drinks a week until the age of 50, now drinks only 3 drinks per week. Timpf, on the other hand, drinks 0 to 1 drink per week. Maher states that he takes what the defense will give him, meaning his body could handle drinking that much without any adverse effects. Timpf does not want to drink too much to avoid looking and feeling bad. However, they both agree that health is a crapshoot, and there are around 7,000 rare diseases that scientists have difficulty diagnosing. Maher adds that medical knowledge is constantly evolving, and as such, people in the future will look back on our current medical practices and realize how dumb they were. Nonetheless, Timpf contemplates how she will die and when she will die, acknowledging the unpredictability of health and death. Kat Timpf then talks about her experiences with death and religion. She mentions how her mom's death made her realize that death is ugly and that our culture tends to whitewash it, as portrayed in movies. She gives the example of the movie Titanic, where the emotional conversation between the two characters towards the end of the movie would not have gone down like that in real life. She also mentions how her mom never let her watch the movie and how it was due to the movie featuring nudity. Kat's mother was a devout Catholic. Though Kat comes from a Catholic family, she stopped going to church at the age of 13. She admits to being traumatized by church and the nuns that taught catechism. Despite her experiences with church in the 90s, she wasn't an atheist, but agnostic. She believed in God, but never really thought about religion much. However, at some point, she realized that she couldn't make herself believe in God and hence became an atheist. Kat also mentioned how religion is stupid, but that God is different. She talks about how her book talks about how comedy is kind of a religion to her because bad things happen and she can be creative with it and can have some kind of meaning. Despite her not being a Catholic, her family members are still upset. But Kat believes that if they love her, they should also accept and understand that she is confused and unable to believe. Kat expresses her views on the 10 Commandments and questions their relevance. She believes that some of the commandments, such as not making false idols or coveting your neighbor's wife, are pointless and that there are much worse things that could have been included, such as rape or incest. They move on to the topic of abortion and the possibility of overturning Roe v. Wade. Kat declares herself pro-choice and says that she doesn't see someone else's pregnancy as her business. However, she admits that some people do view it as murder, but she is okay with it. Kat also reveals that she and her husband have 9 frozen embryos and jokingly refers to it as a reverse abortion. Even though she's not sure if she wants children, she is willing to have them if her body has the ability to do so. Bill Maher mentions that having children is still very popular and that most people have them for deep-seated reasons. Kat talks about her husband and how he is a good man compared to the trash she has dated in the past. Her husband wants kids, and she thinks she might have them in the future. She says that she's terrified, but her husband understands her ambitions and believes that she would be a great mother. They then discuss their preferences when it comes to dating and relationships. They start by talking about their attraction to hot trash, people who are both attractive but also have a certain level of edginess or trashiness. Maher explains that he likes tattoos and finds them hot, but also acknowledges that he finds trashy equals fun in a lot of different ways. However, as they have both gotten older, they have found that the parts of trashy that get on one's nerves far outweigh the good sex. Maher mentions that he has never gotten married and acknowledges that some guys don't get married because they don't like girls, and some guys don't get married because they like them a lot. Timpf talks about her fiancé, who is very secure in himself and lets her be herself. The conversation shifts to Timpf's pregnancy. She explains that she froze 9 embryos because she wasn't sure if she'd be fertile and wanted to be able to have a child at a later time. They discuss how the doctors can store the embryos in a secure location like a fridge and hope that there's a generator or backup plan in case the power goes out and the kid melts. They also talk about the fact that doctors often make you feel like they have all the answers, but that they are often just guessing, especially when it comes to complicated medical issues. Kat shares her experience of having a perforated bowel and getting it removed. She reveals that she almost died from it and had to have a bag for 5 weeks. Bill is surprised and asks her what caused the problem. To which Kat says she doesn't know, but it wasn't because of vigorous anal sex. Bill jokes that having anal sex might be the reason, to which Kat laughs and denies the possibility, saying that she enjoys it. She also adds that her husband is a keeper because he still had sex with her while she had the bag. Kat admits that she was disgusted by the bag and couldn't even look at it, but her husband emptied it for her. She jokes that if anyone tells her she's ugly, she would say that she had sex with a bag and still looks attractive. Kat Timpf talks about how she threw a party and bonged champagne out of an unused ostomy bag that she had after having a hole in her colon. Kat explains that the unused ostomy bags have a hole for the small intestine to go through, and the one goes in and one goes out, and they celebrated by pouring champagne in the ones that weren't used. Maher suggests that there is too much testing in the American medical system. However, Kat disagrees and says that if she hadn't gone to the hospital, she would have been dead. They discuss a set of instructions for sex post-ostomy bag that Kat Timpf read. Maher and Timpf find it disturbing that the instructions had to be bolded and all in capitals with an underline, not to penetrate the stoma, which is the small intestine. Timpf thinks that people are always looking for something new and freaky, mainly men among humans. Maher recalls the movie Crash by David Cronenberg, in which people reenact infamous car crashes and get injured, and one character is turned on by Rosanna Arquette's wound on her leg. Maher finds it interesting that Timpf does not watch movies and only watches reality TV. He recommends Gran Torino to Timpf, but she is not interested in watching it. Timpf grew up in the Detroit area, where she spent a lot of time in Hamtramck, a Polish neighborhood. She learned things like how to drown a rat, which surprised Maher. They continue talking about the movie Gran Torino by Clint Eastwood, which is about a retired auto worker in Detroit who lives next to a Hmong family. Maher describes the movie as brilliantly funny and politically incorrect, which Timpf agrees with. The two also briefly talk about other popular movies they haven't seen, such as Titanic and Star Wars. Maher reveals that the biggest backlash he ever received was when he made a joke about lacrosse, which he called an arena of people masturbating to how rich their families are. Timpf, who is married to a D1 lacrosse player, acknowledges that it's a liberal joke and that people fact-checked it. But she found it frustrating that jokes are taken so seriously. Maher and Timpf also touch upon the difficulty of not being perceived as being on a team in America, particularly when one works for a certain news network or has a certain political leaning. Kat shared that she's often called out for not being conservative enough for the Fox News audience, even if her views are libertarian instead. Similarly, Bill Maher has been labeled as a conservative for expressing viewpoints that are not commonly expressed by other progressives. Kat shared that she believes in the libertarian principle of doing what you want as long as it doesn't hurt anybody else. She also said that she thinks taxes are immoral and that the government taking someone's money without their consent is akin to armed robbery. However, Bill disagrees with her on this point. He argues that taxes are needed for society to function, and without taxes, it would be impossible to have the things people enjoy in their lives. He also stated that labeling oneself as a libertarian is complicated since it encompasses various ideals. Bill thinks this can sometimes be regarded as intensely stupid. Bill Maher argued that taking someone's money without their consent is a moral issue, even though taxes are necessary because life is not perfect. He also expressed disappointment in the amount of taxes being paid, saying that people feel like they are paying too much without seeing much in return. Maher also talked about his frustration with taxes in California, which he described as a state that makes your wallet bleed. However, Maher ultimately recognized that taxes are necessary, and he pointed out that the standard of living in other countries is much worse. During their conversation, Kat Timpf joked about Maher's comment about taxes and suggested that ducks in Maher's pool could be considered government property. Maher discussed his experience with these ducks, which have been in his pool for 6 months. Maher mentioned that there are multiple male ducks that come to his pool and try to take over, but Onyx, the male duck that's been in the pool the longest, beats them back and even mates with Ducky, the female duck. Maher mentioned that there is a camera in place to monitor the ducks. Timpf joked that the situation with the ducks is like a Bravo reality show. Maher and Timpf also discussed their love of animals. Timpf mentioned that she does not drive and is bad at it, but that she loves bugs and used to collect butterflies as a child. Maher had a pet cricket named Charlie, and both of them discussed their love for animals despite having different experiences. Maher mentioned that there was more wildlife when he was younger, which led to a discussion about global warming. Timpf admits to having caught and killed butterflies when she was young, feeling bad about it because of her later realization of the harm humans cause to nature. Maher jokes about the fact that the only sick part of her statement was that she could smell the killing jar. Timpf explains that her father used to mount the butterflies on the wall. She admits that she feels guilty about it now, especially because of her love for her pet duck. Maher then makes a joke about men being hunters and gatherers and asks Timpf for her advice on getting rich. Timpf talks about her upcoming shows and her desire to have a duck pond in her future home, revealing her unconventional sexual preferences related to her medical condition. They then bring up the unrealistic nature of pictures shared on social media. Timpf mentions that the whole country is built on people sharing pictures of each other that are not realistic. She also reveals that she intentionally tried to look less attractive on the cover of her book to seem more approachable, since women usually do not want to see a hot chick hosting a show. Maher opines that the theory behind showcasing a less attractive image is to put women at ease. They both agree that pictures hardly depict reality, with Maher stating that that's not reality. Timpf also admits to wearing fake hair, claiming that most guys do not really care about a woman's hair as much as women think. She cites the case of a guy who was apparently obsessed with full hair as a sign of fertility, but she jokes that she can take him on a date and drive him to see her 9 frozen kids to prove she has fulfilled the criteria.